Because until now, almost every video I've uploaded has followed the exact same pattern. It goes live, sits at 0 impressions for hours, and then just slowly disappears like it was never even there. So I started asking a different question, because clearly trying to improve my content wasn't fixing the real issue. What if the problem isn't how good the videos are, but whether YouTube even understands them enough to test them? And that's where this experiment came from, because I needed to break the pattern instead of repeating it again. I chose something simple that most people ignore, not because I thought it would work, but because I needed to force a different outcome. Uploading at 3 a.m. wasn't random, even though it sounds like it is at first. It was the easiest way to change how my video enters the system without changing anything else that might confuse the result. So I kept everything else exactly the same as my previous uploads. Same structure, same pacing, same type of idea, so that if anything changed, I could actually trace it back to this one decision. Then I uploaded the video at exactly 3 a.m. and walked away from it completely. No refreshing analytics, no checking every few minutes, just letting it sit there without interfering because I wanted to see what YouTube would do on its own. And at first, it looked exactly the same as every other video I've posted. 0 impressions, no movement, nothing happening at all, which honestly just confirmed what I expected. But then, something small changed, and it didn't happen all at once. The impressions didn't stay completely flat for as long as they usually do, which is something I haven't seen consistently before. Now, I'm not saying this suddenly took off, because it didn't. But the behavior wasn't identical, and that's what made this interesting. Because when you're stuck at 0 impressions, even a small shift is actually a big signal. And that's the part most people overlook, because they're only looking for big results. At first, I thought it might just be random, like a one-off fluctuation that doesn't mean anything. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this might be pointing to something deeper. Because YouTube doesn't just randomly decide to show your video to people. It needs to understand what your video is and who it's for before it even starts testing it. And that's where things started to make more sense, because right now my channel has very low confidence. There isn't enough data for YouTube to clearly understand my content yet. So the testing process becomes slow, inconsistent, and sometimes feels like it's not happening at all, which explains why most of my videos just sit there doing nothing. But when I uploaded at 3 a.m., I might have changed how that process started. Not in a huge way, but just enough to trigger a slightly different behavior. And that's actually more important than it sounds, because right now I don't need a viral video. I need YouTube to start testing my content properly. Because without impressions, nothing else matters. No clicks, no retention, no growth, just videos sitting there with no data being generated at all. So this is where my thinking started to shift, because I realized I've been focusing on the wrong problem the entire time. I've been trying to improve videos that nobody is even seeing yet, which means I've been solving for quality before solving for distribution, and that's why nothing has been changing, even though I've been putting in more effort. Because quality only matters after your video is actually being tested. And if your video isn't being tested, then YouTube has no reason to push it further. So now I'm looking at this differently, because this experiment showed me something I didn't expect. Small changes might not fix everything, but they can change how your video enters the system. And if that entry point changes, then everything that happens after that can change as well. Which means this isn't random, even if it feels like it is. There's a system behind this, and I've been ignoring it without realizing. I've been trying to improve content instead of improving how that content gets understood. And that's a completely different approach to what I've been doing so far. It changes what I focus on, what I test, and what I actually pay attention to. Because now the goal isn't just to make better videos. The goal is to make videos that YouTube can actually recognize and test properly. And if I can figure that part out, even slightly, then everything else becomes easier to improve over time, because at least the videos are being seen. This is still early, and I'm not pretending I've figured everything out. but this is the first time I've seen behavior that I can connect to something I actually changed. And that matters more than big numbers right now, because when you're starting from zero, clarity is more valuable than results. So now I'm going to keep testing this properly, not randomly, but with intent. Changing one variable at a time and watching how the system responds to each decision. Because if I can stack small changes like this, even if they only move things slightly, that's how this eventually builds into something real. And this is the first time it feels like I'm not just guessing anymore. It feels like I'm finally starting to understand what actually matters.
Which means the next test matters more than the last one, and that's where things start to get interesting.